Welcome to another off-season edition of Spits and Suds on 105.3 The Fan. I'm Gavin Spittle, and with the Olympics happening, thought it was a great opportunity to hear from a game changer for me personally, not just in USA Olympic history, but the generation of fans because of him and his teammates. We welcome in the captain of the 1980 gold medal award-winning USA hockey team. You may also know of them as the Miracle on Ice, the pride of the Boston University Terriers, former home of our Dallas Stars netminder Jake Oettinger. It's the great Mike Eruzione. Good afternoon, Mike. How's the summer?
Everything's going great. A little rainy here today, finally. It's been pretty hot up here in Boston, but summer's been going great.
With all your travels throughout the year, and you wouldn't be able to tell from my voice as an Essex, Mass kid, I ended up dropping the accent, but you still have that great Boston accent.
Yeah, it's not as bad as some of my friends, but I still have it.
Nice. So it's been a few years, but before we get into the Olympics, do you remember any great memories from Jake Oettinger, who's now playing so well for our Dallas Stars?
Sure, I do. Jake actually got my scholarship, I think, 2 years in a row at Boston University. So I got to know Jake pretty well. Hated to see him leave. Would have been nice to have him stay a couple more years, but it's just great to see his success and what he's done as a goaltender. But again, I just remember him as just being a really good person, a good teammate. Guys loved him, loved playing for him, being around him. And I was proud to have him receive my scholarship while he was a student athlete at Boston University.
Yeah, I went actually around Thanksgiving last year to watch BU take on Quinnipiac, two top 10 teams. Wanted to get my Macklin Celebrini fix in. Boy, what a player, huh?
Yeah, he was pretty special. Hard to believe he was only 17 years old. And again, just not only a great player, but a really good kid. Loved being around him. He bought into it. He bought into the whole program. Very mature for 17 years old. I remember him. I went up to one day and I said, "Mac, I'm not happy with you." And he kind of looked at me, goes, "What's the matter?" I says, I went to school here. He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I'm the third all-time leading scorer here." I said, "I'm in the BU Hall of Fame. I won an Olympic gold medal, and you're getting more mail than I am." And he just kind of laughed. And he didn't know where I was going with the whole conversation, but it was fun to be around him and fun to see him play and be a part of Boston University hockey like Jake was.
Well, you've represented Boston University hockey for so many years, and what runs they've had. They're back to their prominence. And, I try to explain to people down here how great the Beanpot actually is, where Boston University, Northeastern, Harvard, and Boston College, especially the caliber of Hockey East now, it truly is a special tournament. Can you bring back any memories when you were playing in the Beanpot? Because I think it's just about almost 80 years old now.
Yeah, I think being a Boston kid, having the opportunity, first of all, to play at Boston University was a great honor. And then to be able to play in that Beanpot tournament that you hear so much about, you grew up watching it and, knowing how important it is, not only college hockey, but obviously the city of Boston. So, the memories I have, I had lunch with some friends today. The biggest memory I have was trying to get tickets because I had so many people, 40, 50, relatives that wanted to go to the Beanpot, and it was, as you know, hard to get tickets. So
yeah,
I used to go to all my Canadian teammates, and in those days, BU was really more of a Canadian team than, U.S. players. So I would have the Canadian kids come over to my house for dinner once in a while, and I'd say, "Look at you, my mom's going to make dinner, but you got to give me your 2 Beanpot tickets." And it usually worked out pretty good.
One of my co-hosts on this show is Craig Ludwig, 17 years in the league.
Yeah.
He actually, I don't know if you remember this because you guys were kids, but he actually was on the initial tryout team for the 80 USA Olympic team. He said he was screwing around, partying because it was his birthday weekend, was one of the first cuts. He said probably not the best decision he's ever made.
He was a pretty good player.
Yeah, he certainly was. But he talks about the old Boston Garden. And I mean, as a kid from, Massachusetts, that must have been amazing playing in the Garden. But he talked about the locker rooms and when he was playing for the Canadians, somehow like when it started to get hot out, there was no, cooling in the locker room, and they'd shut the windows. He just said it was a miserable place to play.
Well, they had the cigar smoke because they could smoke in the building
Yep.
in those days. And, the old garden, it was such a small little building. The ice surface wasn't very big. And, you think you're going to go step onto the Boston Garden. It's going to be this huge, unbelievable facility. And the old garden was special. I think that's why the Celtics and Bruins did so well at home.
Yeah. Was it the Boston Garden or playing at Madison Square Garden that was more special to you?
Oh, Boston Garden.
Okay.
You grow up there, and Madison Square Garden. We just played that Christmas tournament my senior year. But I think being from Boston and stepping on the ice where Johnny Busick and Bobby Orr played was pretty cool.
So even though it's the summer games, anytime the Olympics come around, it's probably still a special time for you.
It is. I was just in the other room watching the steeplechase.
Nice.
I get, I love watching the Olympic Games, summer or winter. Obviously, winter one's a little more special, but to watch our athletes compete, and some athletes from other countries, and it's just great to see. It's not always about gold, bronze, and silver. It's about the athletes and the opportunity, that the training they went through to get there. Some of these Olympians are going there just hoping maybe to have their best time that they've ever had, and that might not be gold, bronze, or silver, but still, it's a performance that they'll remember the rest of their lives.
In today's social media, like I'll be on Twitter throughout the day, and if something happens, then I'll quickly, flip and look at the highlights. But even when I talk about 1980, because I have that frame picture of you guys celebrating after, winning the gold, and I tell the story, kid growing up in Massachusetts, screaming in front of my TV, that game was actually on tape delay, and people still to this day, they don't believe it. They have to look on Google, because I had no idea back then that the game was taped. I had no idea of the USA-Russia. I just knew it was a big game, and I was locked on the TV. I had no idea it was tape delayed.
Yeah, it was funny. Again, today, lunch with some friends. The Soviets, the U.S. and ABC wanted to change that game from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock to have it live, and the Soviets wouldn't allow it. So hence the game was played at 5 and then shown again at shown tape delayed at 8 o'clock. And you wouldn't have that today. I mean, again, you go back, it was a long time ago. There was only ABC, NBC, and CBS. There was no, ESPN. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was no social media whatsoever. So a lot of people had no idea what was going to happen at 8 o'clock, because the game was already played, but nobody really knew the outcome yet.
So I was just watching an interview recently with Al Michaels, Rich Eisen, and you popped on there, and you had mentioned at the time that it was about 7 years ago, you hadn't watched that game much, such a big game, but just wasn't your passion to flip and replay the memory?
No, I've only seen the game twice.
Wow.
And I have it on a VHS tape, so that's how long ago that was. And I laugh about it. I don't want to be sitting at home and watching the Russian game, and one of my buddies shows up and says, let it go, Mike. It's over. Someday maybe I'll watch it with my grandkids.
Yeah.
They've never seen the game, but I found out the other day that I can get my VHS tapes, and they can change them over on a disc, or one of those new things they have technology wise. So
yeah,
if I can get that done, I'll have the game on a disc, and I can watch it with the grandkids.
Do the grandkids know who Gramps is yet?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. The oldest is 11, and I have 7 grandkids, and six of them are boys, and 3 of the boys, my daughter's kids who live down the street from me here, they're 11, 10, and 9, and they skate at the Mike Eruzione Center. And up until 2 years ago, they didn't know who Mike Eruzione was. I was just Papa. And
that's great.
Now they kind of know who I am and what happened, so they're pretty cool about it. But we don't talk about it. I talk to my grandkids the same way I talk to my own kids. Is what I did is what I did. What you do is what you do, and I don't expect them to be gold medalists. I expect them to be good kids, good brothers, good neighbors, good friends, and they happen to be good athletes as well. So that's kind of fun to watch. But it's more important that they identify with who they are and what they've done, and just maybe respect me and what my teammates and I did.
Okay, now you mentioned the Mike Eruzione Center in your hometown of Winthrop, Massachusetts. Very important question for all kids growing up in hockey. Does Mike Eruzione get that free hockey rink pizza?
Not anymore.
Oh, so when
But
you
I
walk
help
in
out.
the you
I
you
help
go
out with our high school team, so
okay.
I get some benefits down there at the rink.
All right, so you actually have an interesting tie-in locally here in Dallas-Fort Worth. Your line mate throughout the Olympics was Neal Broten, and he's such a rich part of Minnesota North Stars and Dallas Stars history. One of those limited numbers up in the rafters at the American Airlines Center. What do you remember about Neal, both as a player and a teammate?
Well, first of all, I believe he was 18 years old at the time. Um, so he was very young and very immature and very funny. But boy, was he a great player. At 18, you never know how good somebody's going to be.
Sure.
And I didn't know Neal was going to become this great a player as he was because, he was still a kid starting out in the game. But he could fly. He had great speed. He had great vision. And he had a love, a passion for hockey. I mean, you could, see it in practice, the enthusiasm that he brought to the rink every day. And then the youth at being 18 years old, I remember, sitting in the locker room before a game and he'd be sitting there eating a hot dog or a piece of pizza. And then I'm like, how the hell can he do that? We got a game coming up. And he just, nothing ever bothered Neal as a player. He just loved to play the game. And it was just great to see his success. And, I see Neal a lot when the team gets together, and he hasn't changed. He's still the same Neal Broten, and it's great to see.
Yeah, that's great. On that note, he was a Minnesota kid. And the other thing I try to explain was back when you were playing, there were some serious rivalries, almost you could say friction. Like if Jake Oettinger, a Minnesota kid, went to play for Boston University, that would be a massive story back when you played because it was very regional. So when you guys got together, how did the tie come together that friction quickly went away?
Well, I think first of all, it came together right away, immediately. I mean, I think anybody who plays a sport of ice hockey, you realize right away how important your teammates are. To me, it's the ultimate team sport, and I think you bond right away, and we did. We had some fun with it. We laughed about it. The Minnesota Boston University rivalry, Minnesota Wisconsin, even the Minnesota kids that played at North Dakota and Minnesota Duluth had a rivalry against the Minnesota kids who played at the University of Minnesota. So we kind of had some fun with it. But like I said, once that team was put together, the friendship and the bond that we have even to this day is pretty special.
So you played for two legendary coaches, and Jack Parker at Boston University. Were you also an assistant for Jack Parker, as well as Herb Brooks, the legendary coach in the Olympics? You've always been known for your leadership skills. Did that occur prior to going to Boston University? And how much influence did that duo have on you? Because you've traveled throughout your life across the country now, motivating and talking to others.
Well, first of all, if it wasn't for Jack Parker, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in. Jack found me in the middle of the summer playing in a summer league game and offered me a scholarship to Boston University. So if it wasn't for Jack, I never would have had the path that I was able to have. And clearly playing under Herb Brooks, who was very similar to Jack in many ways. They were coaches that demanded and challenged you every single day. And they not only made you better players, they made you better people, a better person. So I think, having played for those two was again, a great privilege and an honor because they had a passion to coach and a passion to teach. And as far as leadership, I never thought about anything like that. I'm just who I am. I don't think, you become somebody different. All of a sudden you're a captain of a team and it's like, oh my God, I'm the captain. I better change. To me, it's important to be who I am and who I've always been, which is I like to think a nice person, a nice teammate, and somebody who worked really hard for their success and has great, pride and pleasure in knowing the things I was able to accomplish as an individual, and more importantly, the teams that I played on. But, I don't think I've ever changed who I was from when I was age 12 to soon to be 70 years old, which drives my wife nuts because I was very happy with who I was before the Olympics and very happy with who I am after the Olympics, and don't think that, and I never looked at it, taking on a different role as a player. It was just important for me to be myself and be who I am.
You've been at every single level: youth, high school, college, Olympics. The captaincy, have you seen it change over the years as far as the role that it has?
I don't think so. I think, again, I look at our captains at Boston University, and those are the players that stand out. They have a leadership quality that players respect, players look up to, and I think it's the same thing. College hockey today is very, very different than when I played. The players are bigger, they're better, they're faster. The weight training, the nutrition that they go through, it's a whole different ball game. And college hockey today is different in terms of players where they're coming from. California, Texas, Arizona,
Yeah.
Missouri, Florida. You never saw that before. So you're getting a lot of diverse players from different parts of the country, but they all still have that common goal, and that's to be on a winning team and to be successful and to be the best. And I think, players are just, they have it inbred in them that, to be a part of a great team, you got to be a good teammate. You got to work hard together. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in each other. Old-fashioned work ethic, old-fashioned values are very important in sports. And I don't know if it's quite as old-fashioned as it used to be because, like I said, the game has changed. But your best players still have to be your leaders.
That moment when you won the gold and you were up on the podium and you invited the rest of the team up, that's one of the great spontaneous moments in Olympic history.
Well, it was a reaction. I mean, first of all, one person shouldn't be on the podium. It's a team event. It should be the whole team. And after the 80 Olympics, if you noticed, 84, 88, there's a long platform where all the players stand together at once. And that's the way it should be. But for me, it was, my teammates were staring at me and I was staring at them, and we didn't know what to do. So it was, come on up here and let's get on the podium. And we all fit. I don't know if we'd all fit now, but we all fit then.
Do people think when you beat Russia that you won the gold medal? Because I remember this, I was so nervous against Finland because you were losing against Finland and you guys came back to win.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, that's something I talk about a lot. Everybody talks about Russia, Russia, Russia. But if we don't beat Finland, you and I aren't having this conversation.
Yes.
The Finland game was the biggest game of the Olympics for us. I mean, the Soviet game was huge, obviously, and more from a political standpoint, I guess, to some people than a hockey game. But if we don't beat Finland, like I said, you're not interviewing me today. We're not having this conversation.
Yeah.
So, I think, again, our team, you think about our team, we were trailing Sweden. We came back and tied. We were trailing Czechoslovakia. We came back and won. We were trailing Norway. We came back and won. We were trailing West Germany by 2 goals, and we came back and won. And we were trailing the Soviets throughout the Olympic Games and came back and won. And the same thing against Finland. So, again, I think it's a tribute to our team and the type of players that we had, that we never quit. We just kept battling despite the circumstances.
So now I love watching USA hockey and what it's become. How great is it for you to watch USA hockey? What's happening at the juniors winning world championship? And now so many of the stars in the NHL are born and raised right here in the U.S.
Well, again, I think it's awesome to see. Like I said, the growth of the sport. Players from Texas, Carolina, Colorado, California. Austin Matthews is from Arizona. And the size and skill of the players, it's incredible. I watch my grandkids' games, and I can't believe how good some of these young kids are. So the growth of the sport and the talent on the ice, and clearly, the United States goes into any tournament at any level, and we're considered one of the favorites. And, let's give a shout out to our women, the growth of women's hockey.
Yes.
And how good they are. I mean, I watch our women's team play, and oh my God, they're so skilled and talented. And the only thing I think that somewhat hurts the women's game is the other countries haven't quite got to the level that the U.S. and Canada are at. I mean, they're getting a little closer, but I think, in the women's game, I think the best 2 teams in the Olympics are usually Canada and the United States. And I think the next 2 best teams are the girls who didn't make the U.S. or the Canadian team. So, I'd like to see, the women's game grow more from other countries, but the growth in our country is off the charts. As like I said, and as you talked about, the skill level of our men. When we put a U.S. team together, we're one of the favorites, and that's great to see.
I was going to give you a heads up. Just drafted by Boston, 4th overall in the PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League. Hannah Bilka, she's resides just outside of Dallas in Coppell, Texas. Went to Boston College. Sorry about that, but she went to Boston College.
She couldn't get into you.
And then Ohio State, where she just won a national championship. Yep. She plays for Team USA. She's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I watch them play. And it's just great. It's great to see. It's just great to see young girls have an opportunity to do something young girls didn't have an opportunity years ago.
What I also tell people is if you like physicality in hockey, watch the women's game, especially internationally when they play Canada.
Yes, the incidental contact. Yeah, okay.
Well, this has been a pleasure, sir. I appreciate you taking the time. I know our listeners are going to be so excited to listen to this. Thank you for what you've done. You made this kid a serious hockey fan. I went out in the street after that and was, shooting into the net because of Mike Eruzione and the 1980 Miracle on Ice. It truly is a pleasure, and I'm glad you've had such a great career both on and off the ice. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Take care. If you see Jake, tell him I said hello.
I certainly will, and thanks for listening to another edition of Spits and Suds right here on The Fan.